Tancred of body active was and light, quick, nimble, ready both of hand and foot. But higher by the head the pagan knight of limbs far greater was, of heart as stout. Tancred laid low and traversed in his fight, now to his ward retired, now struck out. Oft with his sword his foe's fierce blows he broke, and rather chose to ward than bear his stroke. But bold and bolt upright Argantes fought, unlike in gesture, like in skill and art. His sword outstretched before him far he brought, nor would his weapon touch, but pierce his heart. To catch his point Prince Tancred strove and sought, but at his breast or helm's unclosed part he threatened death, and would with stretched out brand his entrance close, and fierce assaults withstand. The tall ship so doth a galley fight, when the still winds stir not the unstable main. Where this in nimbleness, as that in might excels, that stands, this goes and comes again, and shifts from prow to poop with turnings light. Meanwhile the other doth unmoved remain, and on her nimble foe approaching nigh, her weighty engines tumbleth down from high. The Christian sought to enter on his foe, voiding his point, which at his breast was bent. Argantes at his face a thrust did throw, which while the prince awards and doth prevent, his ready hand the pagan turned so, that all defence his quickness far o'erwent, and pierced his side, which done, he said and smiled, the craftsman is in his own craft beguiled. Tancredi bit his lip for scorn and shame, nor longer stood on points of fence and skill, but to revenge so fierce and fast he came, as if his hand could not o'ertake his will, and at his visor aiming just, gan frame to his proud boast an answer sharp, but still Argantes broke the thrust, and at half sword, swift, hardy, bold, in stepped the Christian lord. With his left foot fast forward gan he stride, and with his left the pagan's right arm bent. With his right hand meanwhile the man's right side he cut, he wounded, mangled, tore, and rent. To his victorious teacher Tancred cried, his conquered scholar hath this answer sent. Argantes chafed, struggled, turned, entwined, it could not so his captive arm unbind. His sword at last he let hang by the chain, and griped his hardy foe in both his hands. In his strong arms Tancred caught him again, and thus each other held and wrapped in bands. With greater might Alcides did not strain the giant Antheus on the Libyan sands. On hold-fast knots their brawny arms they cast, and whom he hateth most each held embraced. Such was their wrestling, such their shocks and throws, that down at once they tumbled both to ground. Argantes, where it hap or skill who knows, his better hand loose and in freedom found. But the good prince, his hand more fit for blows, with his huge weight the pagan underbound. But he, his disadvantage great that knew, let go his hold, and on his feet up flew. Far slower rose the unwieldy Saracen, and caught a rap ere he was reared upright. But as against the blustering winds a pine now bends his top, now lifts his head on height, his courage so, when it gan most decline, the man reinforced and advanced his might, and with fierce change of blows renewed the fray, where rage for skill, horror for art bore sway. The purple drops from Tancred's sides down railed, but from the pagan ran whole streams of blood, wherewith his force grew weak, his courage quailed, as fires die which fuel want or food. Tancred, that saw his feeble arm now fail to strike his blows, that scant he stirred or stood, assuaged his anger, and his wrath allayed, and stepping back thus gently spoke and said, Yield, hardy knight, and chance of war or me confess to have subdued thee in this fight. I will no trophy triumph spoil of thee, nor glory wish, nor seek a victor's right more terrible than erst. Herewith grew he, and all awaked his fury, rage and might, and said, Darest thou of vantage speak or think, or move Argantes once to yield or shrink? Use thy vantage, thee and fortune both I scorn, and punish will thy foolish pride. As a hot brand flames most ere it forth goeth, and dying blazeth bright on every side, so he, when blood was lost, with anger wroth, revived his courage when his puissance died, and would his latest hour, which now drew nigh, illustrate with his end, and nobly die. He joined his left hand to her sister strong, and with them both let fall his weighty blade. Tancred to ward his blow his sword upslung, but that it smote aside, where there it stayed. But from his shoulder to his side along it glanced, and many wounds at once it made. Yet Tancred feared not, for in his heart found coward dread no place, fear had no part. His fearful blow he doubled, but he spent his force in waste, and all his strength in vain. For Tancred from the blow against him bent, leaped aside, the stroke fell on the plain. In thine own weight o'erthrown to earth thou went, Argantes stout, nor couldst thyself sustain. Thyself thou threwest down, O happy man, upon whose fall none boast or triumph can.